When you first meet with an author, how do you determine whether the book is more of a calling card for their brand or this is actually their product, this is their message to the world, this book?
Yeah, talking to them about their goals a lot of times will reveal that. And if it's more of a business book or it's pulling in their professional expertise, if it falls under the guise of self-help, and I know a lot of times authors don't like that name, or maybe it's a memoir. Nowadays, I just love some of the sneaky memoirs that are coming out where it's a memoir, but they frame it around anecdotes or stories that can help people learn about whatever the thing is that that person wants to share. So figuring out how they want to use that to impact their business, brand, and their company. Are they going to then take that calling card type book and sell courses? Maybe they themselves have courses or retreats that they want to run. Maybe they want to use it to garner speaking engagements. Maybe the sales of the book matter less and it's more about, I have this credibility, this brand, because look, I have a book. When somebody writes a book, that says a lot about their stick-to-itiveness and their tenacity and their expertise. It just gives you a little bit more clout and credibility in your professional space. Oftentimes that book, if you're going to be speaking at a convention of realtors because you wrote a book about the real estate market, maybe you want to have 100 books on hand that you can hand out in the goodie bags at the end of it. Because then it's literally your calling card. Now they're reading your book. If you are doing financial advice and you have your own book on your shelf, when clients come in to meet you, that again establishes your brand and your credibility so you can use it that way. Maybe that's where you're handing it out to folks. So there's a lot of ways that you can use that book to help elevate the other aspects of your business. You can even go on, even fiction books. We're talking a lot about nonfiction or business type books, but even fiction books, you can have a whole merchandise line that might build up around it. If you do have that fantasy adventure book and there's some dragons and trolls and magical kitty cats in there, what have you, well, maybe you have a magical kitty cat tote bag and stuffed animal. Kids books can really lend themselves to that too. The Slumberkins brand is one I know that my grandchildren really love. And the Slumberkins books, they're the hard books, the board books. But then they all feature a different stuffed animal plushie. So you get the plushie and you get the message that's in it. So thinking about, from a marketing point of view, how you might be monetizing that kind of a calling card book there's a variety of ways to do it. And it really just depends upon some of the goals and what the author wants to achieve.
What if you work with an author and they tell you they themselves don't want to be the brand, they want their book to be the brand?
I have that happen a lot, actually. It really depends upon the book and the author. And we talked a little bit about nom de plumes earlier too, and I've worked with some authors who don't want even their face to be used, and it can create some issues because nowadays we're used to seeing faces and we're used to seeing folks. That accessibility matters. So if they don't have any kind of a social media presence, they don't want to have a website, they don't want to do all of these things, they're going to put themselves at a disadvantage. And if they are self-publishing, that's going to be really hard. Small presses, hybrid publishers, again, really, really hard. And oftentimes what I tell authors too is even if you are looking for traditional publishing, and you might have the next great American novel, it could absolutely be the case. But one of the things they're evaluating you on too is your author brand and your presence, the audiences that you've built. So if you have a website, that means you have website traffic. That's an audience. If you have an email list, that's an audience. If you're on social media, your Instagram or Facebook followers, those are audiences. In the marketing part of a book proposal, which is generally done for nonfiction, those numbers are honestly what they're looking for. And if that publisher has to decide, and chances are they're making a lot of these types of decisions on a regular basis, between the author who has zero brand presence, no website, no followers, next best novel in the world, next great American novel, compared to the author who has 10,000 Instagram followers and a professional website and, followers on their Instagram. Who do you think the publisher is going to go with? It's obviously the one who's got the followers, unfortunately. So sometimes just having that wonderful, excellent, enticing book isn't enough. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm saying those are some of the things to take into consideration.
If an author wants to be a brand, what's an effective strategy?
Looking at what they want to say to the world. What is their underlying message? For fiction writers, that can be a little bit daunting because they're like, I have these characters that are speaking for me. They feel kind of far removed from their brand. Oftentimes it can relate back into the theme or the message of the story. What is the book really about? And that can feed into their branding. I like to look at branding as being about that core message that's going to follow you all the way through of all of your marketing and PR. That brand and those messages are going to inform your social media. What types of things are you posting about? If you're a true crime writer and you're doing investigations, are you posting about some of the scenes that you've been at? Are you creating this blog post that goes with it? So there's all sorts of things that you're doing all the way down the road to when you're doing your PR and your interviews. So again, if a host or a producer wants to have you on their show, what are the things that you're going to talk about? Is your fantasy novel have some kind of a political or societal message behind it? Because that's something that a show who might not necessarily always talk to authors, they might want to ask you about that. So finding out what that core message is informs all of those steps along the way. For the nonfiction authors, you've got it easier. It's harder when you're fiction and you're trying to kind of dig into the theme. I always say that if your book is 10 ways to lose 10 pounds in 1 month, that's the pitch right there. That's what the topic of the interview is going to be. You're going to be pulling from that for your social media. It really informs a lot of the marketing that you do all the way down the road.
And then what about sharing little bits of your life in your social media to keep people going, that they know this is a real person and they want to be invested not only in your stories, but who you are as a human being?
Absolutely. There's a 80-20 rule when it comes to marketing and social media. 80% of what you put out there should be about you, about your adventures, your pets, your walk on the beach, and any way that it can subtly influence your audience is a great way to go about it too. For example, if you write cozy mysteries and it's set in a cupcake shop, well, maybe you're showing us the cupcakes that you make. Maybe you're on TikTok and you're doing cupcake recipes and, I don't know, dancing around with cupcakes. There's ways that you can really have fun with that so that you're integrating your brand and your strategy together. The 20% of that 80-20 is where you're doing the salesy stuff, the buy my book type of a thing. My book is on sale now, or check out, a lot of times you can post the interviews that you've done or some of the specials that might be going on. Perhaps you're going to a writer's conference. You can kind of combine that salesy stuff with what you're doing personally. But I definitely do suggest that because people are people and we relate to other people. So if we want to kind of get to know that author and feel like we're friends with them and they're somebody that we'd like to hang out with, then heck yeah, there's a good chance that we're also going to buy their book.
How can an author be easy to work with for an editor?
I know so many editors that have told me things on the sly. For them, it is about being accepting to the criticism that they're giving them and being open to possibly making some changes or to working on the manuscript. Now, if that editor is an editor that's with a publisher and they start giving that, the author starts giving them a hard time, that can be, a little bit scary, because this is somebody who knows their stuff and they're going to be marketing and putting their book in your book in their catalog. You have a little bit more control again if you're with a hybrid press or a small press. Some of the indie publishers that are out there might give you a little bit more leeway and a little bit more say in what you're doing. And if you're self-published, that's the thing. The editor that you hired is very mercenary. They're like a hired gun. Chances are they might tell you, this is what you should do. I think we should change this. And if you push back, they might just suck it up and do it, because that's what they're being paid to do. But I would say to the authors to really listen to that advice. Worst case scenario, find an editor that's going to get you that second opinion if you're really doubting what they're telling you. Editors, just like publishers and imprints and everything else, they have different, expertise as well. So if you've written a murder mystery, you might want to find an editor who's worked in that genre as well. I've seen that happen sometimes where the editor and the author buck heads a little bit, and it's really because the person who's editing it might not necessarily know that genre very well. And again, I'll give another shout out to those beta readers out there. They can sometimes kind of come in and almost be like a third opinion in, a conflict that might be arising between an editor and the author.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.